Let's continue from the previous session. Okay, let's go to Exodus chapter 21, verses 20 to 21. Exodus 21. Exodus 21, verses 20 to 21. Okay, let's read. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished. If the slave dies as a direct result, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. And another Bible verse, Deuteronomy chapter 23. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 15 to 16. Deuteronomy 23, verses 15 to 16. If a slave has taken refuge with you, do not hand them over to their master. Let them live among you wherever they like, and in whatever town they choose. Do not oppress them. Man. So these verses indicate that rich farmers, the owners or masters of the slave or servant, treat servant farmers harshly, very, very harshly. Even they beat, and even many of them died of being beaten. Even some of them, they took refuge. They fled. They took refuge. Why? All the brothers and sisters in Israel, they are equal before God. That's why even though a man becomes slave and work in a house as a worker, as a slave, so they must be treated as brothers and sisters. If they fear of God, they must respect their brother Israelites, even though they are servants. This is the case of Israelite becoming servants of Israel family. How about Israelite becoming a servant for stranger, Gentile? 25, verses 14 to 55. Verses 14 to 5, 47 to 55. Okay. If a foreigner residing among you becomes rich, and any of your fellow Israelites become poor and sell themselves to the foreigner or to a member of the foreigner's clan, they retain the right of redemption after they have sold themselves. One of their relatives may redeem them. An uncle or a cousin or any blood relative in their clan may redeem them. Or if they prosper, they may redeem themselves. They and their buyer are to count the time from the year they sold themselves up to the year of Jubilee. The price for their release is to be based on the rate paid to a hired worker for that number of years. If many years remain, they must pay for their redemption a large share of the price paid for them. If only a few years remain until the year of Jubilee, they are to compute that and pay for their redemption accordingly. They are to be treated as workers hired from year to year. You must see to it that those to whom they owe service do not rule over them ruthlessly. Even if someone is not redeemed in any of these ways, they and their children are to be released in the year of Jubilee. For the Israelites belong to me as servants. They are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Yeah, this is the saddest case. Here, stranger or foreigner means Gentile, those who are staying in the land of Canaan, those who are staying among Israelites. Actually, they are not given any possession, any land, because they don't belong to Israel. So actually, mostly they are economically weak, and they are the subject of being helped. But in some case, become very rich, and then they possess much land. Then sadly, some Israelites become servants for these strangers. But there are three methods, three ways to redeem. First one, the relative. The servant's relative can redeem him. We already referred to this, right? So Goel, the redeemer must redeem the servant, right? Redeemer is from actually relative, closest relative. Second way is that, okay, if there is no close relative to redeem him, then he becomes rich later, then he can redeem himself. Third one, if there is no close relative to redeem him, or if he cannot reach so that he can redeem himself, then he has no choice but to wait until the year of Jubilee. In this point, actually, we have question probably. Then, can any stranger keep or obey the regulation of the law of Jubilee? He doesn't belong to Israel. He doesn't know God. But how can he obey? How can he keep the law of Jubilee? Will he keep? Will he set the Israel servant or free in the year of Jubilee? This way, it would be possible. So, if there are strangers among you, then you must treat them very well. You must help them. You must teach them the law of God. And then you must help them because they are economically weak. Then they will have empathy, right? This way, they have good impression about Israel, about the law of Israel, about the law of Jubilee. And finally, he will be able to set the Israel's slaves free in the year of Jubilee. So if Israelite show mercy, hesed, right, to strangers and persuade them to follow Torah, covenant law, they will respect covenant law. And finally, they will obey, they will practice the law of Jubilee. Today's up to here.